Doctor, when did you hear that scream?
Well, after a few hours had gone by and I had called Gary back, and he had calmed me down from crawling practically around the ceiling, we both went out to look again. And I figured, we went out and looked. We did the same thing. I opened the freezer so that I could know that I was not imagining this. And the same thing happened. And when the freezer was opened, this thing let out a scream like I have never heard before. It literally, the force of the sound made you feel like something was pushing against your chest.
The air around it as it screams actually bubbles and moves.
It felt like the air was moving.
God.
And at that time, it was just, open and closed. And later on, I felt like I had to try to document this.
Of course.
So I took my camera and I took the recorder and I turned it on and I again opened the freezer, and that's when I recorded this sound.
Would you play the sound for us once again, please?
Yes, I will. Hold on.
Okay, here it comes. Oh my God, that's awful. Oh God, that's awful.
I'm glad you returned for more of this remarkable story. What you just heard was from a 1999 interview with the late Art Bell. This story has many interesting pieces, and I plan on reviewing them all with you, so you can make your own determination of what the truth is.
Agenda. Their agenda is to basically keep everyone fractured from information and from any kind of harmony within our lives and our social aspect of our lives. That agenda translates into other issues, including greed, opportunity, aggressive actions that keep, shall we say, that keep people from coming together on issues. In the past, long ago, we would socialize around the church. We would come together in groups and do our praying and our socialization with two different aspects. One for the ability to deal with spirituality within our own religions, and then the other one was basically to come together as community members to support the community effort. Well, I personally believe that a lot of that has been lost. The ability to come together and help and harmonize within each other. But there's one other aspect, and I'd just like to touch upon it, is I think the day has come where more people realize the truth in regard to that we've been visited and we are being visited than those who don't believe it. I think more people are aware, but there still is a fear factor. Anytime you don't have information, anytime you're kept away from those who can give you a better education on things, the result is fear, the absence of information. And we still are living within those boundaries in some regard, some respect, because the amount of people who have actually listened to those of us who have had contact is a fairly small percentage of the overall populace of the whole earth. And I believe that it's spreading. This information is spreading quickly. People are coming together, talking more and more about the true aspect of our lives and our lives intermingling with extraterrestrial life. I think we're beginning to assimilate those ideas into our culture, which makes us stronger as a whole, as a species. But there's a lot more information that people don't know. And we need to educate them. We need to find ways to bring people out of the fear, out of the darkness, and to let them know it's okay to not know something, at the same time to give them the tools to learn for themselves.
Right, we had our first documentary shot in May, May 9th to be exact. After we shot that documentary, some things happened. Can we go into that? What transpired after our first meeting?
Well, it's something that I've been reluctant to talk about, but I will talk about it, at least get it on the record for this time. Over the years, I've been pursued by some pretty bad people who seriously have tried every way possible to silence me and this information from coming out. They've done everything except kill me. After we did the interview together and a few days went by, I traveled to Europe to talk to some people in regard to a conference that I was hoping to attend in Switzerland. And basically what transpired is they set out to kill me. They set out to assassinate me in a fire in a hotel. I was locked in a room within the hotel. The hotel was set on fire. And I barely escaped alive. Now, I won't physically give you the details of how I got out, but I will tell you that for months, 4 months, it was very difficult. I had a lot of medical problems. I was burned. Inside of my lungs were burned. I've had lung clots because of it. I've suffered some minor heart attacks because of this. Your pulmonary system, your breathing system, basically affects your entire body. So when my lungs were damaged, it basically damaged my entire circulation and breathing and immune system. So for the last, from the time this happened until about 4 months after, I was literally in and out of the hospital weekly, and sometimes for months at a time. I believe that this was intentionally done. We have located the people who planned and perpetrated this. And those people have basically been taken care of. Authorities were contacted in some respects. They helped to handle this circumstance and to legally take care of some of the aspects of this. But what we found out after this had happened was the lines drawn back to the original planners, that they were involved with several sub-governments, some agencies that many times people say are involved in black ops or dark operations or illegal operations. And it's what most of us have always known, that there is an apparatus set up to basically squash any information and its validity, to basically target those people who are willing to come forward and talk about what they know. Now, this has happened for years and years during all the time that I have been talking with people, but never this severe to me personally. But there came a time where I think the information that I was talking about and revealing publicly around the world was noticed to be damaging and basically outing some of these people that have been giving and perpetrating the disinformation. I think it got too close to home. So they just decided they had an opportunity to take me out, and that's exactly what they set out to do. And they almost were successful. My feelings about it is anger, of course, frustration for, having been laid up for 4 months, basically 4 months of my life being gone. It's been very difficult on my friends and my team to be able to deal with this situation when for approximately 2 months they didn't know if I was going to survive it. We put a lot of things on hold because of necessity. The public who writes letters to us and to me didn't get their email answered for a few months because we were in the process of trying to understand where this attack came from, who initiated it, and who was to blame. So for that, I apologize to people who were asking questions and wanted to know why I wasn't answering, but I wasn't able to. I was either in a coma half the time or in an oxygen tent or having my lungs cleaned daily. I was struck by infection and one end of the stick to the other. It was a very difficult situation health-wise, but I survived it by the grace of God and my team and my friends who have helped nurse me back to health. It's a reality that I had to deal with. A lot of people recently, who only recently found out about this, have said, well, why didn't I come out publicly with some announcement? Because if I would have done that, there are people that would have spun this information and said that I was doing it as a publicity stunt. Well, that's why we didn't talk about it. That's one of the reasons. The other reason was I was so sick and crippled by what happened. My own team didn't know whether I was going to survive or not. And at that point, everything was on hold. Everything. So that's the reason nothing came out about it initially. And I'm only talking about it now briefly to give you and the public some information to know that this is why I wasn't able to continue to communicate. If there's anything that I've done, it's to communicate. All of my life, all of this time for the last 13 years. And there are those who want to make you believe that I'm hiding under some rock somewhere and afraid to talk to people. I've never stopped talking about this. I've never been afraid. And I'm not afraid now. Even after what happened, I'm not afraid now. Because people have a right to know, and I have a right to talk about this. It's my truth, it's my life, and it was my experience. And for anybody who stands up and says, well, I think I would have done it differently, or I don't think that that's necessarily quite the way it was, I'd say bullshit. You weren't there, I was. And it's time people get a real understanding that this isn't a debate. This is what happened to me in my life. This is my reality. If you don't want to hear it, don't listen. If you want to have your own lecture, go have your own lecture. But I'm talking to the people who asked me to give them information. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling people what happened to me. And that's all.
Hey, can I ask this of you? You know, I've talked to you before, and you've told me about some of the damage that they've done physically, and you said outright you don't even want to talk about it because you don't want people to think you're going for sympathy. But I really, truly, honestly believe that they need to hear the physical damage that has been done to you. I mean, you whitewash over it, and you're real vague about it. But I really would like for you to go on camera and talk about this. I think it's important. I really do. I mean, I understand your position on it, but people need to know that this is what happened to you. They need to hear this. Can you go into some details?
Since this happened in 1996, people have come forward and offered to help in probably every aspect that anybody could imagine help. They've offered me vehicles to use, houses to stay in, food, clothes on my back, help to run websites, to answer email, to work in some one form or another in helping us produce venues for people to listen to this information. I respect and highly thank all of those people, all the people who have supported me. Some of the things that people don't realize is this is 2009. And in the last 13 years, 9 people are dead because they offered to help me. They gave everything to help me. Dead is dead. Dead is not an illusion. My friend Gary, when all this first went down, other people that I wrote about in the book, Dolly, even some of my own family members have been stressed to the point, I believe, of death because of the badgering and harassment that was brought down on my family and people who tried to help me. Every aspect of evil has been wielded at me and people who have set out to support me within my team, within my group. People have fallen and more people have joined. At one time or another, I've decided to quit because of this. I've said it wasn't worth it. You know, I'm not going to take anybody else's life with me. And people have picked up the sword and pushed me forward to continue. All the people who write to us, who send letters encouraging that somebody needs to be a voice for those who have had contact. And that's why I'm continued. That's why. Because they took everything else away from me. They left me with nothing. I had no other option. I couldn't go back to my old way of life because they took it away. They destroyed my career, my credentials, my financial rewards that I had gathered over a period of 20 years. They destroyed all of that. The reason is because they left me with no tools. They left me naked, without a way to survive, thinking that I would go crazy or just be the fool in the eye of the public. They've done everything from harass my mother and father, who were elderly people that have since died, to torturing me. Now, what constitutes torture? That's a very personal thing. Some people would say, well, it's they're harassing you, they're calling you a liar. Well, that's a form of torture. That's psychological. But what do you call it when somebody takes a steel spike, ties you to a chair, and shoves it through your testicle? What do you call that? Where's the validity? Where's the support of the naysayers that say, oh, well, that would never happen? They wouldn't do that. I mean, where's the humanity? People don't know. People don't realize. I realize in talking to groups all over the world that there are guidelines that I try to meet in with respect to the audience that I'm speaking to. I realize that some people only come because they're interested in the phenomenon. But right now we're talking about a reality of life and death. We're talking about torture. We're talking about the pursuit of trying to silence information, which is the same thing that was done in World War II in trying to extinguish a race of people for a different set of ideas. Now, I don't see that as much different than what's going on with me. I am up against a group or groups of people that hide behind every kind of deception that they can create to only do one thing: to make people like me either quit talking or look like fools. Well, my question to that is why? Why isn't information good for everyone? If I am only a fool, if I am only making this up, why has the effort been so constant, so deliberate, so physical, if I'm only some crazy guy? Because what they've done is they've validated that I'm the real deal. And I've had to deal with some of this stuff in a way that I never thought that I would have to deal with any kind of human existence. I've had to become what I hate about this. I've had to literally say, I don't care just to survive about these people. So when people say, this is an exciting thing for you to be dealing with, this is a opportunity for new information, those things are correct. But there's also a dark side to this, a very, very dark side. And most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to know that human beings can be this cruel and this terrible in this day and age. And I know there'll be people that are hearing this, they'll say, well, Jonathan, why didn't you just go to the police? Because a lot of the police are also part of this. Because a lot of the elected officials are behind some of these organizations in every country of the world. This is a war between good and evil, between someone who truly has only a message to deliver. I'm not asking anyone to support me. I'm not asking anyone to give me any money. In fact, I've denied all those things. Sure, we've sold books. Sure, we've done television shows and been paid for our efforts and for the DVDs. People have asked for them all over the world. We created the DVDs because they asked us for more information. It cost a lot of money to produce all of those things, to travel all over the world. And a lot of times, I've done it on my own dime. Why do I do it? Why do I keep beating my head against this wall of negativity or disrespect? Because the thousands of us who have had contact know that there is a reason that's bigger than each one of us individually. We know that there's a value to this information that's bigger than one of us alone. And I know that there's a reason that's going to affect us all. And that is currently affecting us, whether people want to wake up to that reality or not. I personally believe that our existence is being challenged. I think that we all need to recognize the validity of the human experience and see it for what it truly is, not what we've always thought it was, but for the reality behind it. I've talked about that in the past. I've talked about that this information is enlightening for all of us and that it can bridge some of the disbelief and some of the, through education, can basically bring us along to better understand why we're here, why we are what we are today. It's difficult. It's difficult to comprehend, difficult to understand. Even when you spend hours and hours and hours listening to somebody who has great knowledge of it, it's still difficult to digest. I've been reluctant to tell of all the negative sides of what I've had to deal with, what my team has had to deal with, and what other people who have had contact have had to deal with physically and emotionally. Because it's painful. It's personally painful. It's physically painful. And it's sad. It's sad that a few very powerful individuals can suppress and force other people to disbelieve something or not open their minds enough to educate themselves. That's very sad. But it's a sign of the times we live in.
Can you go into the hypocrisy of the researchers in ufology? I've sat and watched those guys for about 15 to 20 years talk about stories that usually don't have enough concrete evidence, but they usually are, hearsay tales handed down through the generations. Roswell, yeah, I've heard about that since 95. Your story comes along 3 years later, 98, and this is concrete proof, validated, physical evidence, photographic evidence. Get into how they suppress, or your views of the suppression or the hypocrisy of the ufologists, the researchers in ufology.
First of all, the interest in what's called ufology, I think, is genuine. I think the public is very interested. I think there's a validity to that interest. The sad part of this subject, this arena that's called ufology, is run like a circus, in my opinion. Most of the would-be researchers are not in it for the research, in my opinion. They're in it for self-gratification, to boost their own egos, to boost their own pocketbooks, financially, egotistically. Greed dominates these people who can make the best conference, who can enlighten people with the newest innovation of information. I've given away information for years. It's on the internet. It's in programs, television programs that have been aired all over the world. People have asked me, why did I quit talking in the United States? Because of the hypocrisy. Because when I first came out, and I was invited to go to a conference in Laughlin, Nevada, put on by the International UFO Congress, I was asked to tell my story. And at that conference, the very first of its size that I had ever spoken to in public, I said this statement to 750 plus people in the audience that also incorporated all of the major UFO research heads and groups.
As we end part 3, some of you may be doing your own research, which I highly recommend you do, and some may already feel the story is too crazy to be real. I want to leave you with a sample of some of the audio recording of Dr. Reed's landlord's testimony from Art Bell interviewing him. Join me for part 4 when we cover all of the recording and more of the interview. Please also remember to subscribe if you're obsessed with learning the truth about the alien UFO phenomena.
Well, all right, back now to my guests. Gentlemen, welcome back, Dr. Reed, Robert Wraith. And we are now joined by Larry Arthur. But first, Dr. Reed, when exactly in the chronology of events in the story was your house ransacked?
The 9th day from day one when I brought the creature home. I basically had been driving back to my house in the evening and realized that there were 3 large step vans parked in front of my house and people going in and out them with hand trucks, with men dressed in like moving attire, like similar to a jumpsuit.
Right.
And I kept going, and then later came back early in the morning to my house being just completely torn apart. It was just as if a cyclone had gone through there.
We now have on the line Larry Arthur. Larry, how do you know Dr. Reed?
Well, we met about 12 years ago through a mutual acquaintance and had a common interest at the time, happened to be music, and, just developed a friendship and a relationship, and I've been a landlord for about 15 years. And
what do you have, apartments, condos, what?
No, just single family.
Oh, single homes.
Yes.
All right. When did you hear from the doctor, and how did you learn that something had happened to his house? How did that happen?
Well, he called me and asked if we could meet at the house, and we made arrangements to do that. I went over there.
You had been his landlord for how long?
Oh, about 5 years.
5 years, all right. So he called you up and probably said, God, you've got to get over here and see this. Something awful's happened or something like that?
Well, he didn't provide too many details over the phone, but he didn't sound like his usual self. And I must admit, in the 15 years that I've been a landlord, this was certainly the most bizarre thing I've ever come across.
All right, so over you went, and what did you find?
Well, I don't know how to describe it. It certainly wasn't vandalism.